So, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Cloud Native Media number 17. 17! 17! 17! How did we do 17? I don't know. 17. It's been a long haul. So thank you very much for coming tonight. We've got a nice, great audience tonight, and very pleased that you could all make it, even though it looks like it's absolutely going to chuck it down in a moment. So thank you very much for coming out, and I hope I hope our talks tonight are of, they meet your expectations. What's been happening since we were last here? There were some riots. Anybody get involved in the riots? Well, we are all inclusive here at Cloud Native Media, so we're not judging. We're not judging. So my son went back to school this morning. That was absolute chaos. Yeah. So that was absolute chaos. So he's all excited about that. And we've got two amazing speakers. Who's been here before? Whoa! Oh, lots of people here before tonight. Who's new? Oh, there's a handful. There's a handful. Love. Always love to get some new people. And as ever, there is only one time that this group of people will be together in this room, and that is now. So please make sure you make the most of all of the networking and other opportunities that are presented to you tonight. And obviously, if it's chucking it down with rain, we might be here a bit longer than you might be planning. Unless, of course, you've got a train or something. Right, let's see what we got on here. Who's coming? Oh, Phil's coming. Yes, we got Phil. Phil's going to talk about the future of sci-fi, the future of AI in sci-fi films. Very excited about that. And then we've got Ashley, a return speaker. Where's Ashley? Over there somewhere. Yay, who's going to... So, Ashley, the self-professed, I'm not an AI expert, but this is what I've done with some AI, which is quite a cool take, I think. Right, and then afterwards, we will be at the 1 ton. If you don't know where it is, there's a little map. We'll try and put the map up again at the end. It's just around the corner. Not difficult to find. You probably grab a little umbrella or something, whatever you need to get there. Be great to see you all there. It's not obligatory, but please, if you can, do come along. And that's where the best conversations happen, isn't it, in the pub afterwards. So who are we? We are an informal group. We don't ask you to pay membership. We don't have any kind of structure per se. We just kind of turn up. We get some sponsors to help us. We turn up and we talk about this stuff, this cloud stuff, and how it relates to media. We have a code of conduct. It is an important thing, so I will leave you a moment to read it. Thank you very much. What's cloud? Cloud is computing infrastructure dynamically defined and controlled by software. That's my definition. I think people kind of like it, but everything's up for discussion, isn't it? Really. What's cloud native? Well, we've got all of these bullet points, but the summary is really do stuff differently in the cloud, because why would you do stuff the same? You're using a different platform. You're going to do stuff differently, otherwise, what's the point? Why cloud native media? Well, we're all about collaboration. So we're all about getting together people with different skills from different backgrounds, different industries, to share their experiences and knowledge, particularly about things like ways of working, how we integrate, how we do stuff with software, how we use the cloud, how we use AI, all of those things, and actually make, we can all do our jobs better with a bit of understanding of the wider space. Subscribe, so you know how this goes. Where all the cameras? Subscribe. I'll try and look at all the cameras. Subscribe, please subscribe. Press the button, and there's a like button as well. Thumbs up. Press that. Oh, all of that. Ring the bell. All of that, please. It does help. It does help if you can do that. Obviously, if you don't like the content, then obviously don't. But hopefully you like what we do here, and you want to help us out by doing that. Subscribing on YouTube doesn't cost anything, by the way. It's absolutely free. Right, organisers. Thank you. So. Sponsors. Who's going to talk about Arqiva? Is Dan here somewhere? Dan.
Once again, welcome to Newman Street, and the lift is still working. In fact, I got told today by Martin that you can actually have 4 people in it, so that's an even upgrade on last time. Whoa! So we're at IBC this year. Like last year, we don't have a stand. We do have meeting rooms, and they're next to Hall 8, I think, where the kind of industry bodies, SIMT, and all of those guys are. You'll find us just past there, so hopefully come along.
Awesome. Thank you. Who's next? Techex. We got Russell somewhere.
Hi everybody, how's it going? If Dan can tell you where Arqiva are going to be at IBC, then I can tell you where Techex are going to be in Hall 3. Not too far from the IBC Accelerator Zone. We've been working hard on 2 accelerators this year. And, you know, the reality of working in the broadcast industry now is that you are day by day working with people who are pushing the envelope forward, whether they're large organizations or small. And it's only really by trying to make things better as a group in the IBC accelerators or here, the conversations, and the best thing about our community here is that we're not broadcast exclusive, we're not streaming exclusive. It's like if you're interested in cloud and you might be interested in media, then come along and we swap interesting ideas and stories, and it's only by that we can all really find our footing. So we're really pleased to be here. If you're IBC, that's great. If you're not, I'll see you at the next event. Thank you very much.
And finally,
hello. Normally I keep these things brief, but we've got some new copy in, so I'm going to get my money's worth. Who are we? LiveWyer is a leading provider of cloud platform solutions dedicated to helping companies realize the full potential of cloud. Thank you. Our team of experts help accelerate cloud native and Kubernetes projects. Applause. So we're going to be at IBC, but we're going to be at the Cloud Native Media meetup on Saturday. So we don't have a booth, but we have a craft beer brewery that we're going to be hosting that in. And you can find me at the beer taps where I'll be pulling everyone a free beer. So see you all there. Thank you.
awesome. Thank you very much. Great. So we've got not only a call for lightning talks, but we've got some lightning talks. Very briefly from, should we start with Mr. Atkins, please?
So, no slides, obviously, because I only got asked to do this 15 minutes ago. So I thought it was mainly a reminder of what we've been doing as Phrame here with the live streaming. So we have the cameras, the laptop feed are all being encoded, going through a bit of Techex kit, so we get a plug-in for them. That's going through TX Edge out to AWS, where we're then producing live stream, sending the feeds back to here so we can actually see what we're actually mixing and going out, and then also sending it off to YouTube. So the live stream is through that. So yeah, blame someone else if it goes wrong. If it goes well, it's us. So so what we had hoped to do today was actually bring the ML module that we're introducing in, but unfortunately I was unable to say it was working, so we're not quite there. But next time around, we should have some new features that will assist in the production by helping the director actually do it right. And again, don't blame me if I get it wrong. So thank you very much.
Is the audio working on YouTube tonight? Yeah, okay, good. Pleased to hear it. John.
Hello, thanks. It's good to be back really quickly. For those that came in February when I talked about AV1, and one of you gave me the moniker AV1 Kenobi, thank you. I am here to update you on this. And does everybody remember this little card? Okay, this was the industrial cloud card built by AMD and Xilinx. It is double ASIC encoder for AV1. And given the bandwidth issues we had in Phrame, I'm happy to lend this to you for your further research and trial. As AMD finally updated it, they finally, instead of building your own custom kernel and Debian image, you can now use standard distributions, and they give you an FFmpeg build. So I want you to try this, and when you go public for $1 billion, think of me, please. Right? Yeah, right. In the meantime, guess what? I remember I mentioned a couple things that AV1. I was pushing for broadcast 4K, right? Broadcast 4K isn't a thing yet because there's not enough room in the not enough money, not enough data available, right? Versus H.266, which is the proprietary version, the next version of H.264, 265, 266, which is competing with AV1. The international consortium on that selected H.266. So your TVs will all probably cost an extra 50p when that comes out, but it'll be fine, right? I think they probably did that because of error correction, so that broadcast, obviously, you're more prone to packets loss. Anyway, I did build my proof of concept when this finally was updated. I did demonstrate capturing 32 10K or 32 1080 HD streams in AV1, and the same thing with 8 4K streams, and this bandwidth would fit in a 100 megabit network fine, right? I calculated if TFL did a security camera system with 3 cards, they could capture 96 channels of HD, and a 20 terabyte hard drive would handle over a month of that using this, right? At a reasonable quality for reading license plates, registration plates as they drive by. So very cool technique. Anybody want to talk about me? I'm not full-time at broadcast. This is a passion of mine, and I'm a consultant for TerraSky, but I'm going to share this, and we'll talk at the pub afterwards. Okay, thanks.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And it's exciting. I think the tech, all the tech here is exciting, but obviously what David's doing with putting us, actually, we talk about it's cloud native media, but if you're watching online, it's cloud native media. Yeah. Multi-cloud native media. Okay. All right. What we're going to coming up in the community diary, obviously, we've got next week there's a meetup at SIMT, at AWS for SIMT. And then some of us are off to IBC. Who's going to IBC? Yes. Oh, about half the room. That's probably more like so are you all coming to our Saturday night brewery session with David at IBC? Good, good. That wasn't quite. Let's try that again, yeah? Yeah, okay. Obviously, if you're not going to IBC, then we'll let you off. Okay. There's a few other things going on. We've got Cloud Native London. We may be back on October the 16th for the next Cloud Native Media. Yeah, that's what's going on. There's a few dates we've got in the diary for future events. So they are on cnm.live/dates. Should you require to fill out your diary for those. What's in the news? There's some AWS media updates. Media Live SRT Caller. Media Connect individual output stop start, which I think is quite a useful thing, and we've got some trails of some IBC announcements that AWS are doing on those things. Out today, RTS have launched this mini MBA. I'm not sure what a mini MBA is, but we've got some RTS people in. I think I saw Ed earlier. Anyway, so mini MBA help to plug the skills gap and fast track careers. It sounds interesting. Netflix got a streaming patent, which is apparently related to reducing cold start playback latency. Obviously, as a patent, it's very technical, but they have been granted it in the US, which is, again, an interesting development. So they'll be getting a bit of licensing money, I imagine, if that's a good piece of tech. TEM have teamed up with Austrian Broadcast, so the Austrian equivalent of Arqiva, basically, ORS, to claim that they have run the world's first IP stat marks on 5G broadcasts. So 5G broadcast it's like using 5G tech to do one-to-many broadcasting. So that's quite interesting. We'll see if that takes off, if that what the results of that trial are. Oh yeah, well there's a CrowdStrike again, and everywhere that feels like ages ago now, doesn't it? But you know, I guess the CrowdStrike thing was really for me. It was a real lesson in using canary deployments and not assuming that code you'd already tested and deployed was actually good, and then that obviously this thing had slipped through the net. Cloud native news, David.
Thanks very much. We only have one slide, and that's because Paul stole all of the cloud native news in his list. The CrowdStrike one, I was like, do about CrowdStrike and talk about deployments and this. Oh no, he's done it. Okay, cool. So we've only really got one slide today, and it's becoming a bit of a theme for me, talking about open source and cloud native licensing. So I promise the next one with these we do, I will not talk about licenses, and I will steal some of what you've put in and do some of yours. But specifically around this is around Elasticsearch, so company elastic.co. And around 3 years ago, they made the decision to create their own license called the Elastic license, which basically told cloud providers to bog off. It basically said, you can't monetize or provide our software as a service. Only we can do that. We don't like you doing this. From this henceforth, you cannot take our software and provide it as a cloud service. And it was like specifically Elastic license. So 3 years have passed, and now they've gone back to open source again. So what's changed? Well, first of all, they haven't revoked the Elastic license to say you can't do this. What they have do is they've introduced an open source license which says it's either you can't do this, or if you are, you have to release all of your source code. So they've now implemented an open source model back again. This, I suppose, is a little bit deceptive, this drop, because this came about on the announcement that they were going back to open source, but that was also in the round of announcements that suggested that they weren't going to hit their end of year numbers on the stock market. And are those two things related? Yes. Do they say they're related? No. As far as they're concerned, everything is great with AWS. AWS has like learnt the errors of their ways, and they now have their open search product, which is now a complete fork, which has complete development behind it. They now don't use the Elasticsearch name, which was something that they were worried about because they essentially use their name in their product. But behind the scenes, this is seen as a bit of a reaction to the fact that they felt that they had more community sway than they did. So what did they do? How we were swearing. You sure we put the yeah, okay. So they're now in the find out stage of fucking around. So they basically tried to call AWS's bluff. They were like, yep, we're just going to put this license, you can't use it anymore. And AWS said, well, okay, cool, we'll take your code and we'll build a community and we'll fork it and we'll go with the rest of the community and we'll build a product. And they have, and it's been successful, and now they're in the find out stage. So yeah, that's the main slide. The last thing I want to add is not related to this. It was more to do with David Atkins and what's happening here, right? And it's more every time we do one of these, David and his team come out and they bring a new version of their platform. And I really enjoyed the lightning talk you did. I want this to be a more regular thing. I want you to come up and treat this as a development tech demo, and I want you to tell us what you've done since the last release. Because you are bringing new features, you are bringing new development, you are bringing new changes, and I think this is the ideal community for you to come in and give us a bit of a release notes of what you've done. Yes, basically. So, yeah, I'll put you on the spot, but there you go. So I'd like to see that next one. Excellent. Okay, cool. Yep, and that's me. I'll hand you back over. Thanks very much.
Thank you. It's showtime. So I'm very pleased to bring Phil. You know, we've all watched classic sci-fi films. We've all seen AI depicted in classic sci-fi films. We've all had visions in the past. I remember watching Back to the Future and flying cars and lots of past visions of things that happen in the future, and bringing them to life and seeing how they compare to what might actually happen in the future, what has happened, is Phil, who's come from Omnion. What's it called? Omnicom. Sorry, Omnion. Both that. Bit of editing to do there. So, Phil, who's come from I can't even get it. All right. Phil, who's come from Omnicom. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's right. I'm from Omnom Media. Okay, I am just going to do the first thing that's going to make me nervous by switching this to this. Did it work? Did it work? No, it hasn't. That's not me. That was set up.
when we tried it earlier.
It certainly did. Hey, there we go. All right, fine. Excellent. Okay. So, it's actually quite nerve-wracking being in front of so many people who are technically minded. I am not technically minded at all. So if you have any questions about bit rates or motherboards, I am not the person to ask. I can tell by blank looks that that's not the kind of thing that you're experts in, but never mind. So I am going to talk about the future of AI as explained in 5 sci-fi films. Just a very brief explanation of what we do, just in case it's unlikely, I think, that any of our paths will cross in the past. So, 1 second. So, my clicker is not working. See, I'm in a room of technical people, and then already things aren't going according to plan. 1 second, please. There we go. That's working now. Okay, so OMG Futures, we are within Omnicom Media Group. Omnicom Media Group is a global and media advertising agency. It's really, really big. It's the second largest media holding group in the world, 74,000 employees across 85 countries, and our clients include things like Volkswagen, Pepsi, McDonald's, HSBC, and Diageo. And within that, I am head of Futures, and we run something called Omnicom Media Group Futures, which consult on future megatrends in media and tech and culture, but make sure that clients, advertisers, and brands understand what the implications of new technologies such as AI are for their marketing. So what you're about to see is the kind of presentation that we give to them, not to someone that's perhaps in your line of work, but more from a brand perspective. And when we talk to our clients about really big picture thinking, macro trends, innovation, inspiration, but we want to make sure that it's real and tangible and actionable, and they can do things within their media, their marketing, their communications, and their advertising. That is what we do. The thing that we say to those clients is, because there's a lot of talk around this subject, is we do wow, but we also do how, and we also do now. In other words, all of the recommendations that we make to them, all of the thinking that we show them in terms of how to incorporate this into their daily lives, is followed up by some kind of action. So the future of AI, as we understand it, is there's a lot of hype around AI at the moment, and it's a lot of people, no doubt, probably as yourselves as well, saying, how does this, where does this end? Where is this all heading? No one can predict the future with some certainty, but what we can do is that we can draw on experts in the field, and it strikes me there's not enough people talking to the experts in the field on AI. And so if you look for clues in the work of the experts on how AI's integration into society might unfold, that is how we are getting our view or our prediction or our prophecies about how brands, media, marketing and advertising will have to react. And so we've drawn on the thinking experts of a couple of people, Max Tegmark, Jaron Lanier, Yuval Noah Harari, Timnit Gebru and Kevin Kelly, as amongst many others as well, to bring you ultimately 5 outcomes of AI's impact on consumers, but expressed as 5 popular sci-fi films as a reference point. And I assume you will have seen at least 4 of these. Probably you will have seen all 5. But what we're going to do is we are going to rank them by likelihood on a scale which goes highly unlikely, unlikely, even chance likely, and highly likely. And so we're going to examine 5 films, look at what that actually means for the day-to-day business, and say how worried you need to be or how likely this is to come true. Starting with The Matrix. And I'm guessing you've all seen The Matrix, or I did meet somebody when I made this presentation that said, do you know, I've never seen The Matrix, which I find really quite stunning, but there we go. But just in case, and the scenario in The Matrix is the enslavement of mankind. So we'll start with a brief explanation. I'm sure many of you have seen it, but just in case there's anybody who hasn't seen The Matrix, AI becomes conscious and enslaves the human race to harvest bodies for power. Here is an opening clip from The Matrix explaining or setting up the context for what I'm about to talk about. Let's hope we can hear it. No, we can't.
You're not actually mammals. Every mammal on this planet instinctively develops a natural equilibrium with the surrounding environment, but you humans do not. You move to an area and you multiply, and multiply until every natural resource is consumed. The only way you can survive is to spread to another area. There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus. Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. You are a plague. We are the cure.
So what you will have seen from that is ultimately AI really hates humans in the Matrix. It really despises them, which is why we keep seeing headlines like this. Is the AI apocalypse actually coming? What could life be like if robots took over? And it's pure clickbait. You know, Agent Smith in the film is charged with wiping out Neo, a man that discovers that reality is an AI-powered hallucination. And as you've heard, he talks about humans as if they are a virus. And, you know, there are concern amongst some people, particularly with clickbait headlines like this, is like, well, if we invest in AI, does that mean that we're going to bring about the end of the world? It's a really kind of a genuine concern. But you talk to this guy, Max Tegmark, who's one of the leading lights in AI, and his book, Life 3.0, by the way, if you really want an introductory guide to the philosophy and the technicalities of AI, this is the book to read, says stop anthropomorphizing AI. That's not easy to say. In other words, an AI can't hate a human. An AI can't hate anything. It can only optimize towards a set of objectives that you give it. And a human can tell AI what good looks like, and a human tells what AI bad like. That's what bad looks like. That's why the P in ChatGPT stands for pre-trained, trained by a human. And the only way that AI can have some kind of nefarious goal, really, is if they are taught such a goal by a human. And that also means that humans or other humans can counteract that goal with their own goal, which is more moral and ethical and balanced. At the same time, Jaron Lanier, the inventor of VR, says AI needs humans. His book is called Who Owns the Future. He says AIs will never eliminate us because AIs exist only to crunch data, and without any humans, there is no data to crunch. So in other words, it's not like they're going to wipe us out, because without us, they've got literally nothing to do. Like a hotel can't exist without guests, a school can't exist without pupils, and a hospital isn't a hospital without patients. In the Matrix, AI harvests humans for their warmth, if you remember. But actually, if anything's true, is AI doesn't need our heat. It needs us going about our everyday lives in order to generate data, in order for that data to be crunched, in order for the AI to even justify being in existence itself. Without our lives, they cannot be. So in other words, the idea that the Matrix scenario where an AI wipes us out, on a scale, I would say, is highly unlikely. So you can go to bed tonight thinking or realizing that even if you decide to integrate AI into all of the wonderful things that you are doing at a cloud level, it's unlikely to result in Skynet or indeed the scenario in the Matrix. What we're telling advertisers is that, it's fine to continue researching this because the train has already left the station. And Elon called for a pause in AI, but Meta's CTO said, well, actually, I think it's the opposite way round. It's like, because it's actually happening, you have got to get on board with it. You've got to kind of have responsible development and continuing responsible investigations for AI for now. And I actually think that's where Elon's going as well, because he's got Grok within Twitter at Stroke X as well. So we're saying to advertisers, it's happening, so you need to stick close to your agency partners. The second film is perhaps the film which people have seen the least. Has anybody seen Her with Joaquin Phoenix? I think very good. Someone has put their arm up. That's the film when I do this presentation that people tend to go, I've not seen this. In which case we see the virtual personal assistant. So in case you haven't seen it, Joaquin Phoenix there, he's a lonely divorcee. He acquires an AI assistant to help reorganize his life, and it fixes his admin, but then it soon progresses to giving him relationship advice and leads him to fall in love with his virtual personal assistant. Here's a quick clip.
Hello, I'm here. So how can I help you?
Oh, it's just more that everything just feels disorganized. That's all.
You mind if I look through your hard drive?
Okay.
Okay, let's start with your emails. You have several thousand emails regarding LA Weekly, but it looks like you haven't worked there in many years.
Oh, yeah. I think I was just saving those because I thought maybe I wrote something funny in some of them.
Yeah, there are some funny ones. I'd say there are about 86 that we should save. We can delete the rest.
Okay.
Okay? Can we move forward?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. So before we address your organizational methods, I'd like to sort through your contacts. Oh, you have a lot of contacts.
I'm very popular.
Really? Does this mean you actually have friends?
You just know me so well already.
So the idea of having an AI organize your inbox, I think, would be absolutely wonderful. But you know what this is examining is AI as a life filter. So in the film, after reading a book of baby names in 1/200th of a second, it names itself Samantha, and it becomes this life filter for him. You know, acting as a quality control on the data deluge that people experience every single day. And as you saw, you know, it sorts his inbox in moments, and actually it leads him to fall in love with the AI, and he actually falls in love with the AI's personality and seeks advice on how to find a physical mate in the real world. How realistic is this? Well, we are actually drowning in data. Our lives are enriched, but they're blighted as well by a surfeit of information. And I suppose our lives is ultimately now guided by algorithms that sort, sift, recommend. They're part of everyday life. This man, Yuval Noah Harari, is not technical, but he is sort of a kind of philosopher, says humans are relinquishing authority to the free market, to crowd wisdom, and to external algorithms, partly because we cannot deal with the deluge of data. And ChatGPT and Bard, and now called Gemini, you know, these are all new phases of that shifting and sorting. And the next natural step might be to give, and in many cases, you know, we are actually beginning to see this since I wrote this slide, voice tech into interfacing with generative AI. You know, voice tech was something that, you know, hit the big time maybe about 5 years ago. We have VPAs embedded in Alexa and in Echo with Alexa and iPhones, and smart speakers were up 42% year on year in growth in 2019, but 4.6 in 2022. It's almost like they hit the skids a little bit. Partly the reason why is that YouGov study found that 67% of women and 54% of men said they didn't actually understand their commands. I've also spoken to it in a broad northern accent. It doesn't understand what I'm talking about, and there are also concerns about AI eavesdropping as well. Commentators from my world were previously speculating we were entering the world of marketing to the machine. So in other words, we wouldn't advertise to a consumer like you, we would advertise a machine that was the gatekeeper and mitigated that communication before passing it on to the consumer. But it didn't quite happen. We've not quite got there yet, and that's because of those concerns and those problems with accuracy of translation as well. But delayed is not postponed. I think that, you know, that era is yet to arrive because, as I said, because of functionality and accuracy, concerns over privacy. But the technology could improve, and definitely with the latest tranche of AIs like ChatGPT and Gemini and Perplexity. Try that one, ladies and gentlemen. You know, if we do end up with a voice interface overlaid, and we do see an improvement in answers, and we see them make fewer mistakes, and voice tech can cope with nuance and meaning and accents, I think progress will be made. And in which case, I would say the virtual assistant, I'm going to give that an even chance of that occurring, bearing in mind what we're seeing in the market, the uptake that we see from consumers, and also the increase in sophistication and the improvements in the technology itself. What we're telling marketers is that, and advertisers is, you know, ultimately conversational or generative conversational AI is only going to be as good as the data it ingests. So we, you know, our advice, and it's to you as well, just as the general public, don't put too much into ChatGPT if it's private, because ChatGPT eats it and then spews it out as part of an answer that somebody else might ask a bit later, which means that you shouldn't be putting anything really technical or confidential into it. But if it does improve and it does continue to get more sophisticated, it's possible that they will become silicon security guards for any information that a consumer may request from it. So in other words, it becomes a filter, which has got very important implications for me if you have advertisers, but also for you guys as well. And incidentally, you know, if we're going to talk about it literally, there was a guy in Japan who married a hologram, but the hologram died due to a software glitch. Utterly devastating. It's really sad. So the third film out the 5 is Minority Report, when I'm talking about the all-seeing AI. So I'm sure you've all seen Minority Report, where Tom Cruise runs around in a vest, but what happens is that the AI becomes deep linked into life's every interaction, from communication, from commerce to law enforcement, and the fugitive John Anderson receives an eye transplant to try and hide from the gaze of the all-seeing AI. In the particular scene, and I'm sure you know the one I'm talking about, he walks into a shopping mall where he is identified by his eyes, and has targeted advertising shown to him, which would look something like this.
A road diverges in the desert. Lexus. The road you're on, John Anderton, is the one less traveled. A nightfall of diamonds.
You can move the old-fashioned way. Century 21 provides gourmet cuisine. John Anderton! You could use a Guinness right about now. Escape from it all.
Stressed out, John Anderton?
Get away, John Anderton. Forget your troubles. It's smooth.
So in that scene, AI, and this is a really nice key word to remember how it will be used in society, I think, over the next 10 years, is AI not only stands for artificial intelligence, it also stands for always integrated. And Minority Report depicted a society where everything was underpinned by that AI tracking. The human eye was a bio passport. You can't interact in the world without that kind of, without your eye. And entering a shopping mall, you saw he gets targeted ads based on the fact that they can uniquely identify him by the iris scan. That's an AI working. Now, Minority Report, quite terrifyingly, uses all tech that's kind of available today. So in nascent form, admittedly. So the algorithms, I can tell you from somebody that works in advertising, of course, that we can target messages at a digital level. I'm sure that comes as no surprise to you. But also, we are seeing developments, particularly with outdoor companies and signage companies, for meta-humans, AI-powered chatbots that live inside outdoor units that can indeed talk to you as well, and using real-time voice emulation and facial animation. That technically uses AI in the sense that the AI is animating the face, which is a different style of AI from the AI that will uniquely identify you. We don't have eye recognition, but we do have facial recognition technology that is technically available, I believe, sort of within CCTV, and it's an industry worth nearly 40 billion. So that's it. Minority Report is here, right? No, because there's something else going on here, is that we are becoming much more privacy savvy, we are becoming much more data savvy as a society, and I think what we're seeing is tech companies and citizens responding to that. We now are acutely aware of data privacy, and we're also inherently aware of the biases that could be built into the data that AI ingests and spews back out. Governments are responding via GDPR, I'm sure you all know what that is. The American version is called CCPA. Big tech promised to end third-party cookies. That's been delayed, perhaps indefinitely, but it is something that they are still looking at. And Apple iOS also has introduced something called ATT, which is a kind of, how would I describe that? It's basically a more privacy-safe way of targeting advertising at consumers. Without using personal data as well. Tech giants employing AI to model personality types. So in other words, understanding that not targeting Paul Markham, but targeting someone that has been synthetically created to share the same preferences as Paul Markham in order that they can get the right message to him on time, including the Celine Dion album that I know he absolutely loves. So the concern over the data ethics, I think, is it's genuine in society, particularly when you see films like Minority Report stitching that idea. But actually, I think that we're seeing, not a backlash exactly, but we are seeing safeguards put in place, and so that won't be the thing that prevents that all-pervasive surveillance that you see depicted in that film. Governments responding, citizens responding, and even tech companies responding as well. So from a Minority Report on the likelihood, I would say interactive media experiences powered by AI, and I mean animations and avatars, I'd say that is highly likely because we already see that today. But when it comes to that intrusive tracking, I would say that is unlikely on account of the fact that currently government structures and tech guidelines are preventing it from being so. What we're saying to marketers is something along the lines of what Google's AI ethicist Timnit Gebru said, which is we need to advocate for better systems of checks and balances to test AI for bias and fairness, and to help businesses determine whether certain use cases are appropriate given this technology at the moment. Those animated touch points are already in play, but the data privacy that we see that wheeled in when it comes to AI, it needs to be watertight and it needs to be above board so that Minority Report style situation doesn't happen. Data must be used fairly and as bias-free as possible. The fourth film is 2001: A Space Odyssey, the IT meltdown. Has anybody experienced an IT meltdown in this room? We had one like about 10 minutes ago, actually. That was my fault, partly. If in case anybody hasn't seen it, the ship's AI goes rogue after misinterpreting its objectives, and it kills its astronaut crew. Here's a very quick clip.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What are you talking about, Hal?
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hal.
I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me, and I'm afraid that's something I cannot allow to happen.
So again, you know, effectively the AI in 2001 is the blue screen of death in space. So in case anybody hasn't seen it, again, the astronauts abort their mission because they think that the AI is malfunctioning because it starts giving really strange answers. But HAL's objective, remember what Max Tegmark said, they are just sticking to the rules, really. They're just achieving their objectives. Its objective is to complete the mission at all costs. So it cuts life support to the crew, and it refuses to let Bowman back on the ship, which is why you hear in that clip him saying, open the pod bay doors, Hal. And then the other thing he says, or the AI says, is this mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it. In other words, it's completing its mission at all costs. That is its objective. What you're seeing there is the beginnings of, or a predicting of, in 1969, the idea of AI hallucinations. And I'm sure some of you may have heard of this, where experts talk of AI hallucinations, which is a response that seems authoritative but wrong. Okay, so predicated on a misinterpretation of data. This guy, obviously CEO Sundar Pichai, said, no one in the field has yet solved the hallucination problem. All models have this as an issue. And this is the more likely danger of AI, the IT meltdown. I'm looking at all of you guys in this room, right? Because that is more likely than the Matrix-style takeover. Poor software quality costs the US $2.1 trillion a year, apparently, and we've seen high-profile disasters before big blue-chip companies. And then, of course, we had the what was it called? The crash the other week with CrowdStrike. Thank you very much as well. And AI can't be immune from that kind of catastrophic infrastructural failure as well. The question is AI or imperfect AI, or AI that is equally exposed to the vicissitudes of kind of technical breakdown, really that much of a danger? Well, let's look at some historical examples, for instance. So this guy, Stanislav Petrov, in 1983, a Russian early warning software system told this guy that the USA had launched a nuclear attack. And despite having the authorization for a counterstrike, something in his gut told him that this was not right, and he didn't respond. And there was no attack. It was the satellite software had misinterpreted the sun shining off the cloud tops as the glint of approaching missiles, and he overruled what would have been AI, or the computer, and he stopped World War III, and we're all here to tell the tale today. In other words, humans are still needed, it seems, to either fix the problems of CrowdStrike or override AI when we know that it has made a poor judgment, which is what was happening in 2001. Bowman and Poole were overriding HAL 9000, and HAL decided to go rogue. So 2001, A Space Odyssey, how likely are we? Well, in every AI meltdown, I'm going to say, guys, that is very highly likely, and you will know from your day-to-day jobs that, you know, things tend to go wrong unpredictably and unexpectedly. But the chance of this being existentialist in nature, I would certainly hope that human safeguards are in place in the computer industry and in the technical industry to make sure that that is unlikely, but it is still more likely than a Matrix-style dictatorship. So what we're saying to marketers is, don't endanger your customer relationships through poor IT. I'm guessing there's no poor IT in this room. Remember, driverless cars still have airbags and seatbelts, and test and learn, because you always need a human as your safety net. The fifth film, inevitably, you could have possibly predicted that it would be here, which is Blade Runner, of course. And I'm talking about both the original and its sequel as well. And I call this section The Tool, the final film. So in Blade Runner, in case you don't know, a human and a replicant, AI is designed for hazardous off-world labor, produce a child. I've given you the spoiler to the sequel there. Sorry about those, gentlemen, but it's really important to set up what we're talking about here. Here is a clip which will set up the context of how I will explain this film.
Would you step out for a few moments, Rachel? Thank you.
She's a replicant, isn't she?
I'm impressed. How many questions does it usually take to spot one?
I don't get it, Tyrell.
How many questions?
20, 30 cross-referenced.
It took more than 100 for Rachel, didn't it?
She doesn't know.
She's beginning to suspect, I think.
Suspect? How can it not know what it is?
Commerce is our goal here at Tyrell. More human than human is our motto. Rachel is an experiment, nothing more. We began to recognize in them a strange obsession. After all, they are emotionally inexperienced, with only a few years in which to store up the experiences which you and I take for granted. If we gift them
past, we create a cushion or pillow for their emotions, and consequently we can control them better.
Memories. You're talking about memories.
I'm sure we've all seen that scene. So, look, this is more about creativity, perhaps less relevant to your line of work, but nonetheless one that is broadly applicable to society at a general level, which is that emotion and creativity are deep linked. That's effectively what Ridley Scott was throwing forward to 40 years ago. So, I'm sure you all know, in Blade Runner, Harrison Ford hunts down AIs gone rogue, and they spot those AIs by giving them something called the Void Conf test, which reveals fake emotional responses and identifies non-humans. Many of you might have heard of the Turing test, which is when you talk to an AI, and if you discover that indeed that it's an AI, it's said to have failed, but if you didn't know it was an AI, then of course it's passed the Turing test. Replicants in Blade Runner respond to false emotions, fail to respond to emotional stimulus, and that's what's preventing their true creativity. There's a scene, if you remember, where Rachel plays the piano but realizes her abilities are implants from her creator's niece. And why that's important is I think creativity flows from human emotion and it exists to elicit human emotion in return. Just park that idea for 30 seconds and talk about this man, Kevin Kelly. Kevin Kelly maintains that AI is merely an extension of the brain. This book here, What Technology Wants, is an absolutely fantastic read. And in that sequel to Blade Runner, Deckard and Rachel have a child. Sorry, the spoiler alert. But it's a union of Homo sapien and artificial intelligence. Kevin Kelly says, we think that the future is going to be, we're going to see what he calls centaurs, half human, half machines, each complementing each other's strengths and weaknesses, like a cyborg yin and yang. In other words, we have always used tools for human augmentation and acts as an extension of the arm. A telephone is an extension of the voice, and in the modern era, the AI is merely an extension of the brain. And so what we're talking about here is human times machine, not human versus machine. That union is what's going to be key here. So you might have seen tools like a Midjourney and Stable Diffusion creating absolutely incredible videos, but they need a human prompt to articulate that reaction. And that target reaction could be happiness, laughter, fear, but we are the ones prompting that AI. And generative AI is actually more likely to prompt us humans back. It triggers us. It provokes us into taking our creativity yet further. So in other words, creativity needs humans and machines working together. So one of the things we're hearing in the industry is that an AI can't be more creative than a human, but a human with an AI can be more creative than both an AI and a human without an AI ultimately. So what we're saying ultimately to the businesses we talk to is you've got to embrace change. Humans have been used tools for 200,000 years. We're not about to stop now that we're close to inventing the ultimate tool. This isn't going away. You can't uninvent AI. So therefore, Max Tegmark at the start of this presentation is saying we should ensure that humans' goals and AI's goals are perfectly aligned via a merger. And that's exactly what happens in Blade Runner 2049. You see the product of humans and artificial intelligence produced. So we might need to embrace AI in the future, quite literally to become a hybrid of biology and technology so that our goals are aligned, so that we need the same thing, so that we're not competing and we can actually complement each other's best strengths ultimately. Does that sound implausible? Well, again, Elon is actually working on Neuralink. Which I believe he is actually beginning to test. It's an incredible breakthrough whereby a chip will be planted in part of the brain so that ultimately we can augment our intelligence and augment our human ability, which is quite terrifying. So Blade Runner, in terms of likelihood then, on our scale, I'm saying a human and a replicant AI is designed for high level to produce a child. That's going to be very unlikely. But this idea of a greater union of man and machine leading to physical integration, like the kind that Elon's pioneering with Neuralink, is actually, I would say, a likely. And that is the most likely scenario of humans and AI. So the actions for marketers, we're saying you can no more ignore these tools than a tribe would ignore the invention of a stone axe. Your competition will embrace them, so you need to embrace them and innovate responsibly. Find out what you can do that an AI can't, and find out what an AI can do that you can't, and find where that Venn diagram meets, and think about a union to make the best of both worlds. So the summary then, in the last 3 or 4 charts, is to say this. This is what we are telling brands out there and businesses. We're saying, focus on the right thing. Don't worry about AI causing the end of the world. If you're worried about the end of the world, double down on your sustainability strategy. That's a way that you can save the planet. 2, always integrate. Have processes have experts working to introduce it and integrate it in the proper way. Those VPAs, those AI avatars, could be in the advertising formats of the future. 3, respect consumers' privacy. Really, really important. We're saying to all of our brands, make sure that your consumers' data and privacy rights are respected, including third-party tools. Remain ethical and know the law. 4th, build safeguards. Use AI cautiously. Render your experiments safe for consumers. And last, embrace progress. Right? Do not resist these tools. Instead, work on the ways to absorb those benefits, aid the industry, and help consumers by reasserting those more human qualities. Or, in other words, to summarize this entire presentation, what we're effectively saying is not human versus machine, but it is human times machine. Thank you.
Awesome. That's amazing. So, do we have any questions on that? Anybody brave enough to ask something? David, you always have a question. Okay, all right, go on, Nick. No, let's. This microphone's closer, David. So.
Well, I'll run it back. Do you think it's valuable to maybe see, instead of seeing artificial intelligence versus human intelligence, just to see them as intelligence?
Thanks, mate. Jesus, that's loud. I think that is a most excellent observation, because I think one of the things that when you hear real experts talk about intelligence, the first thing that they say is, well, before we even have this debate, let's define what intelligence is. And there is 1,000 definitions of what it is. Some say it's just merely the act of solving a problem with intellectual ability. Others maintain that it's perhaps more than that. There's a more human element. I think that any debate where we talk about intelligence, I think, to your point, has got to define what intelligence is, and also define what is artificial about the use of that intelligence. Again, Jaron Lanier, who's the guy that I mentioned, who's the inventor of VR, one of the things he said was that there was a computer called IBM Watson that won, I didn't know if we see this, it won a round of Jeopardy in the States. Jeopardy's this massive quiz show. It's like Pointless, but it's really popular over there. And the idea behind that the artificial intelligence is they just fed it loads and loads of data so that it could answer the questions. But what it couldn't do is that it couldn't then go and translate your speech, because it was so narrow. So the point was that Jaron Lanier was making is that we call that artificial intelligence, but it implies that it is omniscient. The intelligence is omniscient and omnipresent, when in fact it could only do one thing. And so that's a very good point, which is, I think we need a better vocabulary for explaining what AI is, because technically, and some of you might wrestle me to the floor on this if you disagree, that technically predicted text is a form of artificial intelligence in that it senses what you are going to say and then throws 4 or 5 syllables up and then it completes it. That's all it does. And at the same time, if anybody's seen some of the Gen AI video that has been produced from things like Sora and Luma.ai, which is absolutely mind-blowing. That is also artificial intelligence. And to call those the same kinds of platform or the same kinds of technology is ridiculous, because those two things are exactly at the opposite ends of the scale. So the broadest point, or the response to the broad point, is we are going to have to develop a much better vocabulary for describing both what kind of artificial intelligence is at play, but also the split between where humans and that artificial intelligence hand over, handshake, or interact. So yes, absolutely.
Thank you. That's excellent. Does everybody realize that HAL was a letter shift of IBM?
Yes.
Right? Yeah, okay, excellent. Perfect. Now it's come true, right? On the Minority Report thing, that's interesting, because who's got the Galaxy 4 watch in here right now? Right? Bluetooth IDs are broadcasting everywhere, and I'm not sure if you could protect the data of you logging in or walking in here every time if that's recorded, right? So like everybody with a Bluetooth device that's broadcasting their Mac, watch out. Like that's basically Minority Report right there. Something could record every time I come in this room, right?
Okay.
Today, without eyes, so it's here. Right?
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
cool.
It's interesting. I was going to bring up about the Minority Report thing as well. I think actually you talk about people being more privacy savvy. I think we've almost given up on privacy to a certain extent as a society.
Okay.
We think we have individual understanding of privacy. I'm a consultant. I've worked with lots and lots of companies as well, and I would say that many companies are not GDPR compliant, or at least in the sense that. No, but I mean,
but I'm interested because I thought there was massive fines for companies.
No, but it does happen in fines. But it's almost impossible to be fully GDPR compliant because of the complexity of modern technology and the rate at which it's changing. And for governments, especially, to be fully on top of that is almost impossible, especially with things like AI and the rate of change. So I'm not saying that anyone's acting in insidious ways necessarily, but actually, it's practically impossible. It's either a company or as an individual to be completely and utterly on top of data compliance. That wasn't actually the point I was going to make, but to your point, it's like I walk around with my Bluetooth on all the time. I connect to Wi-Fi networks. We all do it to a certain extent, and we take precautions, and I take a lot of precautions. But I'd say in general, and speaking to people who work for big companies, in my personal life as well, policies exist. Do they get stuck to? No, they don't most of the time, and it's very, very hard to enforce. But if you don't mind me making a separate point around the kind of human versus AI intelligence point. I think there's a really interesting, probably almost Descartes-esque philosophical debate we could get into, which I don't think we should. But to the point the gentleman over there made, we have this really strong idea as humans that what we believe our intelligence to be is a really specific kind of divine thing, right? Where we're kind of infallible, and the way that we process information is somehow more correct than what an artificial intelligence can do. But I think actually, the example you gave around 2001, for example, it's not an example of hallucination. It's an example of a bad reward function in an AI's training. So if the reward function is the mission must succeed at all costs, when actually it should be first and foremost preserve the human life, then make sure the mission succeeds. That's actually just the way that the AI is structured. And it's not necessarily stupid. It's just that's the objective that's been set up.
Yes.
And with the really complex AI, generative AI that we have now, like GPT-4, we don't really truly understand how it's trying to function, and making that distinction with the really large models is harder and harder between what is intelligence and what is not intelligence. And the idea that it's just kind of a stochastic parrot and that it's a autocomplete, I think is not a statement that can be made of absolute certainty that this is something different to what we do. Sorry, a lot to say there. Just musing on a few points.
I mean, I would respond to each of those points, but I think that we won't get out of here by midnight, if I'm honest. I mean, so just to be clarified, the point on the hallucination is specifically what happens in the film is that Hal insists that there's something wrong with one particular antenna unit, and that's the hallucination. It's not his misinterpretation of objectives. Secondly, I think that you're right in this idea that there's a certain amount of anthropomorphization of meaning which goes on in a computer's brain, right? It is slightly black boxed. I heard a brilliant analogy from a comedian that said, imagine that you're in a room and there's a slot in the room, and somebody posts through a Chinese symbol, and you post it back through a different slot. And then someone posts a Chinese symbol through another slot, and you post it back through the original slot, and a light goes green, and then you post it back through the wrong slot, and the light goes red. You now know that Chinese symbol, I presume nobody can read Mandarin, right? That it goes through a particular slot to go green. You don't actually know what that Mandarin said, but you do know that the right position of that Mandarin symbol in order to make the light green. That's all that's going on with ChatGPT. It doesn't make information. It makes information-shaped sentences that make sense to you, but it has absolutely no meaning to the actual machine itself. But there is a much more deeply philosophical question to be answered, like when it starts making ethical decisions, or it starts moving into territory which can be considered moral or ethical. Does anybody know what the trolley problem is? Does anybody know that? Yeah, so the trolley problem, right? So how does an AI solve a trolley problem? For instance, in case anybody doesn't know, there's a train track, there's two lines, there's 5 people tied to one track, and there's one person tied to the other. There is a runaway train, and you as a human have a chance to move the train, and it's heading for the 5 people. Do you pull the lever and redirect the train to go over the rail with one person. And there's that ethical conundrum. And so if you as a human can't even solve that ethical conundrum and can't discuss it openly, how does an AI even begin to bring kind of any kind of human learning or any kind of human meaning beyond the sort of the advanced version of predicted text that we've just discussed? So ultimately, the shortcut to the answer is that this is going to bring up so many different philosophical human discussions as a result of there being an artificial intelligence which shines a mirror on the way that humans interact, let alone the way that an artificial intelligence reaches its own conclusions. And that is going to be something that is going to be deeply complex over the next 10 to 15 years. We're going to get into some really deep philosophical discussions about humanity purely because AI exists.
I think like everybody else, more of points than necessary questions. But I think a lot of people look at these GPTs and think they can hallucinate. I hate to break it to you, but most of the people if you take the average IQ, we're at 100. That's not a great IQ, I'm afraid. This room has been very carefully selected for people to be at a certain level of their careers and education. We are
half of people are below average intelligence.
Yeah, we're probably less than 1% of the population here, right? Exactly, and that is the vote for Brexit was 50%. Half. Yeah, right, I'm not going there. But much dialogue that we have with other people is terribly predictable, right? That's why GPTs work. Everybody actually is very predictable in speech. When you watch a program on TV, you can predict what's coming. And that's because we can do prediction in the same way, not in the same way, but the same result is achieved. So do not have romantic ideals about how intelligent we are, is my point.
I think that's a very good point, and I wrote an article recently about how AI is going to, the first thing that AI will destroy is cliche, because when something is formulaic and predictable, then this is the thing that AI will be able to copy the quickest and the cleanest. So the example that I give is that, there are actual virtual pop stars in Japan at the moment which don't exist in the real world, that have all their songs written for them by AI, have got a huge fan base, and they are replacing the likes of, who's a modern pop star these days? I don't know, Taylor Swift and Chapel Rowan and all the rest of it. If you're Rage Against the Machine or you're Radiohead, I think you might be a bit safer because you are somebody that's pushing the boundaries of your art, and in the case of Radiohead, you're doing something that's a bit strange, or in the case of Rage Against the Machine, you've got genuine human anger that's expressed in a really, really hard way. And I think they're a bit more safer from AI. But to your point, yes, is that AI is if you are cliched or predictable in any way, AI could be coming for you for the very reason that you've stated, which is people are predictable and their patterns are predictable.
Awesome. We love Swift. As I said, we're all inclusive here, so everyone is welcome. So we're going to take a really short break. I think Ashley has been beavering away at the back. There is something brewing that's exciting. He's been doing stuff, and really, I would say don't go anywhere other than to the toilet, because what we've got coming up is going to be as exciting as what we've had. So thank you very much to Phil. Happy to welcome back Ashley, who has been beavering away in the back, doing some fun, interesting AI type stuff. Maybe interesting. So we've got another tool in the box, which is really talking about how you can use AI from a non-expert, non-AI person kind of perspective. So technical, but not necessarily an expert in AI. So I'm really excited to hear this. Try this again. Come on. Woo! Woo! Yeah! That's right. Yeah. All right. There you go. Your mic's up, so you should be able to.
No, I'm not. No, I'm on the.
You want one?
That's me. Yeah, got my own back up. It's the first time I've had to woo myself on, by the way. But you right there, mate? Cool. Well, thanks for having me back, guys. My name's Ashley. I run a company called Now Marketing. We specialise in software for the marketing industry. So that entails things like SMS text messages and emails and public Wi-Fi, and one of our biggest products today is digital signage. So kind of compares with a lot of you media guys in TV, where we actually distribute a lot of video at the right time to the right destinations, and a lot of the devices that we display it on are high bright screens, so they auto calibrate themselves to the weather outside the building. But today, apparently, I'm doing a talk on AI, and when Paul phoned me a few weeks ago and went, "Do you want to do a talk?" and I said, "Yeah, what's that about?" He went, "AI," and I went, "I'm actually not a clue about AI, but I did tell him a story," and he went, "He went, that will do." So this is the truth, isn't it? So literally, I kind of think about AI as another tool in the toolbox, i.e. the name of the presentation I'm doing now, or the talk. So if you look at Excel, like we rely on it. If it wasn't there when you walked into the office tomorrow, you wouldn't be able to calculate your expenses. You wouldn't be able to calculate staff timesheets. You wouldn't, technically your only option really is to go to somebody like a sysadmin or somebody with elevated privileges. But the thing is with Excel, we can just do it, right? And there's no reliance on developers. So this is really the edge that I'm trying to come from. Even though, yes, I'm a developer. You messed the last presentation up. Look. Anyway, right. So clap for Paul, clap for Paul. Yeah, clap for Paul. And for the second time, he's not derailed me, so it's pretty good. So yeah, long story short, there's no reliance on developers, and that's really the edge that I'm trying to go down really with my approach to AI. Have you changed the batteries of this, mate? So this kind of goes back to me doing a talk in March at DCMS. Close friend of mine, he was meant to be talking, put me in because he had a business trip in Japan. Now at the time, I did not know what DCMS stood for, and out of fairness, when I was on the train coming up, I still didn't, so I entered this line here, just to remind me. So the Department of Culture, Media and Sports. It was a bit of a clue when I turned up in Parliament Street, by the way. But I was there to talk about the radio industry. There was a lot of really quite influential players there. I actually met one of my absolute bucket list people to meet, which was Trevor Dan. He's behind the old grey whistle test. He was the producer of Live Aid, if anybody watched that in 1985. Probably one of the largest TV audiences to date, 2 billion. And there's loads of other people talking, but really one of the emphases on all the talks was AI. And remaining professional, when I walked away, I was a little bit underwhelmed, to be honest with you, because they were talking about AI this and AI guru that, and there is a lot of hype, isn't there, around AI and how it's used in the industry. Obviously, AI is quite literally in its infancy. So on the train back to Brighton, where I live, welcome to visit anytime, everybody. I started to think to myself, what allows me to judge a load of people that have put together presentations, probably taking hours, if not days, over their presentations, and I'm sitting there and I've not done anything with AI whatsoever. So that was my trigger for me to actually kind of jump across into the AI realm. Obviously, I've got skills in coding, I've got skills in running a business, and I've got skills in looking at something and kind of going, that's worth a punt. So you kind of glue all of them together. I started kind of thinking, well, like, what would I do? And I would get a new controller for my presentation for a start. So literally, I was thinking, right, what can we do with a spoken word summary using AI? Like my aim is to do something meaningful. So I might have to crouch down, so I just do that and you can see the screen at the same time. So the bottom line was that I wanted to use an advanced audio transcription to summarise 1 hour of content, which I'll come to in a minute. The reason why it has to be advanced, has to be accurate. Same with accountants, you give them rubbish numbers on the way in, you get rubbish results on the output. I wanted to digest 2 different radio stations worth of content. So one of them was a bit of an alternative station in Brighton called Sax City, that's owned by a friend of mine, Daniel. There's a lot of music there, but it's not popular in terms of like charts. And then there's another station that's completely commercial, also in Brighton. So I took the same sample of output for 1 hour in March 2024. It was exactly the same hour in the day as well, just to make it fair. And then I processed that through a text-to-speech service, which I'll go into more detail in this talk. And then I then gave that text that we got from the text-to-speech processing a second pass with AI, and I started to ask it to summarize the content. So the machine learning models that I used was ChatGPT, and part of this talk is about anybody can do this, and if one person here watching this presentation, either in the room or online, tries to do something with AI, ChatGPT, any of the models I discussed in the talk, then I've done my job as far as I'm concerned. So the first area that I went into was ChatGPT Playground, which you can just create an account and open AI. You start playing with it. There's probably a lot of people in this room that go, yeah, of course, Ash. There's other people going, oh, didn't realise you could do that. So being balanced in the room. Then you got ChatGPT API, which literally means you've got a programmatic interface that you can talk to ChatGPT, and you can start to automate these requests to ChatGPT. Obviously, with the transcription models, like for years and years, if you think about it, every time you used to phone a well-known cinema and you go, can I have 2 tickets to Odeon Brighton or whatever, and it'll go, 4 tickets to Basingstoke, right? So obviously, speech to text has been around for a long time. It's all based on the models and how large the models are. So Vosk is one of the ones I played with, and I've actually, to be honest with you, in terms of very good quality, low background noise models, Vosk is actually pretty good. If you run it against a talk-based radio station, it'll come in about 90, 91, 92% accuracy. What's wrong with that? Hello? Can you hear me? Okay, right, cool. Did Paul tell you to do that? Right, okay. But as soon as you've got the speech-to-text transcription working, you've then got things where full stops go and capitalisation, what have you. So punctuation is actually a much bigger job to do than actually. You'd assume actually just taking the human voice and translating it to text would be the hardest job. But actually, believe it or not, the punctuation side of it is incredibly resource hungry. So Whisper AI, which a lot of you in this room, a few nods, a few hands up for Whisper AI, yeah, 3 people, 4, okay. So Whisper AI is literally a much more modern model. It's much larger. And quite frankly, when I tested it, I was going to be expecting it to be like a little bit better, but actually, going back to my first point, if you give your accountant rubbish numbers, you're going to get a rubbish summary at the end. The same goes anything that we're trying to do with AI and asking it to process the information and summarize the information. Technically, what we're feeding it has to have a reasonably high level of accuracy. So with Whisper AI, absolutely astonishing. In most cases for me, it's been in the 95th percentile in terms of comparing what it's outputted and what I've expected to see. So these are the actual prompts that I fed OpenAI. Sorry, mate. To go through. Right, it's the 3rd time and he's still not succeeded in derailing me. So, thank you very much, mate. Okay, right, shall I try that myself because my legs are killing me. No, yeah. Okay, well, hey. Right, okay, so in terms of the actual prompts, this is literally what I fed it. I literally said, build a list of all songs played in order. The song fields are artist, song, title, year of release, genre, record label, length of song. Bullet list in what was discussed in the news if it was played. Remembering we've got 2 different radio stations. One's a bit left wing, certainly doesn't carry news on the hour, quite obscure songs, and then another one that's quite commercial and everything happens, you know, within a millisecond. And then bullet list what the DJ was talking about. So on the first station, the news discussed, the DJ was talking about, he mentioned seeing John Waters in London. He talked about attending a record fair and DJing. We also discussed an upcoming concert by a band called Mary in the Junkyard. By the way, the output that you're looking at is the output unaltered whatsoever directly from ChatGPT, and this is from 1 hour of content in March 24 this year. In terms of the question about what the DJ discussed, he mentioned being a fan of John Waters again, so there's just a lot of talk about that. Mentioned an up-and-coming radio show that was going to be live from a radio fair, which I was able to confirm as well. So obviously these hours of content that I processed for today's presentation, I actually listened to both of those hours as well to check the accuracy from a human point of view. Hopefully I'm human. And then he showed this excitement for band Mary in the Junkyard and their recent concert experience. So obviously the DJ's a massive fan of Mary in the Junkyard. Still not too bad. If you're at home, make a cup of tea. So we all up to speed? Yeah, good. Because I'm not. Right, and then here we go. Right, so the songs played. You've got to remember, right? I don't know if any of you saw the last talk I did here. I did a talk on acoustic fingerprinting. So this is really how the television industry and the radio industry log what's happened, right? So if you've got an advertiser that's doing a 50 grand ad campaign in a month across television or a large radio station, they want to know what they've paid for has happened, and the output of the playlist logs is not strong enough. So what they will do is they'll monitor off air, literally have a receiver, digital receiver on one of the transmitters somewhere terrestrially, digesting all of this information. Obviously, in 2024, it wouldn't make sense for people to sit there and watch telly, sit there and listen to radio. So literally, it's looking for the acoustic fingerprints in the audio. Now, obviously, the talk that I did was about smaller radio stations that can't afford what the big main broadcasters can afford to do. So we ended up building a product that did acoustic fingerprinting, and we had a link up with, I think, Spotify, Deezer, YouTube Content ID, Apple Music, and I think there's like one other. This information you're looking at here is actually from ChatGPT, and the first thing I thought is, well, this is the more obscure radio station, this is the more obscure music. How the hell did it do this? But actually, it appears that ChatGPT has all the lyrics databases. So actually, without anything more complicated than we just saw on the prompt screen, we're getting output where it's actually listed the 13 songs which genuinely are in this order. It doesn't have a record label. It doesn't have a time of the track. It doesn't have a genre for the music. But there are literally no errors. And I think if this was published on any playlist on any station or music TV program output, this would probably be accepted as a good job, whoever did that. So moving on, we're now moving into the more commercial station that's a bit more predictable, should we say. So the news discussed on the station was very, very accurate. When I listened to the report, which by the way was like the first 2 minutes of the recording, absolutely everything that was discussed in the war in terms of the back in March, the pro-Palestine protesters, the 3 ships, the Iranian journalists, the Tory MPs, and even in the sports news, Manchester United, everything that you're reading on. Did Paul put that? Right, so everything that I've read on there was there. It's in chronological order. And out of fairness, I hope you agree with me. It's kind of, they're well-formed sentences. Okay, there's no full stops, but I think I did ask it to bullet point it, so there probably shouldn't be in that case. And there's definitely conformity, and uniformity in terms of what we're looking at, because there's no odd full stops. It's all literally outputted like that. So the DJ discussions, yet again, obviously not to bore you guys, the announcement for the Heritage Chart Show on Sunday at 5 PM, Regency Radio, that was bang on. Even down to an advertisement for mytimeshare.claim.co.uk, that was actually bang on. And I don't know if you guys, some of you may not be aware, but when you got distributed news for local radio where they can't really afford to pay for the service, they'll tag an advert on the end of the sport or before the weather and what have you. So that's picked up quite well, and personally I was actually quite impressed with that. That capitalisation, by the way, I didn't put that in there. Literally the output is literally raw text, copy paste into the presentation, put a few bullet points, and that's that. So I've literally not modified anything that you're looking at. On the songs played, and obviously the reason I was saying the more obscure station, it didn't answer all the fields, but at least it gave it a shot, and there were 13 tracks, and it was accurate. But Shanice, I Love Your Smile, 1991, I remember that somehow. R&B, Motown, 3 minutes 50. It does appear that whatever the large models that ChatGPT is being referenced on is obviously ingesting an awful lot of additional metadata. So it isn't just Wikipedia and Reddit that's driving ChatGPT models, which is good to say. Not that anybody said that, but we're all thinking it, right? So the technologies used for what you've just seen, Whisper AI on a GPU via API, like literally. The reason why I'm showing the money is part of my presentation is like any one of you goes away and goes, right, I'm going to give that a shot, and I really say, please do it. By the way, this whole presentation I'm doing today, there'll be a QR code at the end, so you can literally take a snap and obviously save it and kind of go through it. Obviously, I'll put URLs and references as well all the way through. But yeah, literally 15 cents per hour transcribed. In terms of the time it takes to process it, because obviously thinking about parallel jobs, and you wouldn't, obviously when you're playing around yourself, you'd just be doing one job, you'd be thinking about yourself. But obviously when you start to scale up, you're going, right, okay, this radio station group owns 64 different brands. Straight away you're going to need parallel processes. And you think about it, it might be you or you or you that comes up with an idea going, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we enhancing metadata or what have you? And that could then lead on to the development team taking a brand new project because the CEO or the CTO have kind of gone, that's a great idea. Like, in terms of the OpenAI side of it, obviously, yes, I'm very aware that we've got ChatGPT 4.0, but obviously this is back in March, so this is me using 3.5 Turbo, and I think you'll find Turbo trumps O. No, it doesn't. Okay. This is just sounds good though, doesn't it? So that was on a GPU using API, working at about 3 cents per hour at 720 times real time. Can you think about it? The input content is text, and the output text is just text summarized. Less. And then obviously to achieve what I did, I needed to log the audio in the first place. So I thought it was only fair that I calculated that as well. So in terms of HLS, which is literally just chunks of audio that kind of go in 5, 6 or 10-second segments. If your Apple is 6 seconds and it's nothing else. Log that in S3 compatible storage, so not AWS. I want to be really clear as well. AWS is absolutely a massive leader in their space, but there are companies like Linode that are owned by Akamai. Definitely most people in this room know who Akamai are, and that storage is coming in at 0.34 cents per hour recorded, which will go up with scaling, but still, you could afford to do this, on your own money, couldn't you? There's nothing here that's going to break the bank. So what are the use cases? The obvious one is like automatic program information, so potentially enhancements to like red button or the modern equivalent of like teletext, CFAX. Metadata for people with hearing difficulties, like potentially if you've got somebody that's really hard of hearing, if you could summarize what that episode, because this isn't just radio, right? Obviously I'm from a radio background, radio runs in the blood, but if you've got ITV dramas, you've got science programs, you've got school programs, it'd be really quite easy to set up a workflow and have this metadata coming out in a really enhanced summary way. Technically, we've got database enhancements, so in terms of indexing the content for better search results, even not just public, but like internal use in businesses. People search for various keywords and what have you, but if somebody's producing a program on medication or schooling or what have you, it may make a lot more sense to have summary information that's a higher level, but to make the databases larger, but by scale, and not have, I suppose, adding intelligence to the index search. And then another obvious one is search engine optimization. So if you're running a website and potentially your post-production house or what have you, you've got loads of different episodes of loads of different programs going out on a weekly basis. Like if you take something like EastEnders, there's multiple times a week, you could technically have all of these summaries and you can attribute that to content that's displayed on your website in a programmatic way. So what else can we do? So we've got speech to text, we've just done that, and that's what we've looked at. But we've also got text to speech, so the other way around. We're giving AI text, but we're getting a very human, natural voice out the other side. And you only need to go to your Facebook feed and scroll for a little bit, and you've got Morgan Freeman bloody everywhere, right? So let's make it more interesting and go into voice cloning, right? So to get a voice clone of your voice or yours or even Paul's, which he told me to sue me if I did, so I haven't put Paul's voice on today. Literally, you only need like a minute. Like 20 minutes is great, but a minute you can get something that sounds half reasonable. And out of fairness, some of you that are new to come into this event today, you may have never met Paul. So I've actually picked on a famous 80s style DJ voice. Okay, not cool. And also a natural world narrator. Right, yeah. So, and this one, David, is to check that the audio works. So, right, here we go. So,
Paul, are the levels correct? Can you everyone?
Is it working?
On here.
One minute. Is it?
Paul.
Oh, no. Oh, actually, hold it. I've just realised. Seriously, I think my laptop's roaming. Don't trust the internet here. Right, okay. Right. Take my phone out of my pocket. Right, so what I've done is I've cloned two voices. He's on Paul's wages, isn't he? I can tell. Just before the audio comes out, let's pull the audio cable out. Right. Jesus. So I go home now. Right. Here we go. Right. So we're just going to check that audio again.
Paul, are the levels correct? Can you everyone hear me? AI in the house, mic check, 1, 2.
Can I just say, by the way, that that's my fiance. Like, I sampled her, and then, like, so you've already heard AI, but I haven't got home to go to tonight. Sorry, Ellie. Right, so right, here goes. So here we go. So the first one is a famous 80s style. Don't want to be sued, right? DJ voice. Right, you ready?
Hi, remember me? Is anyone...
We've got a buffering issue.
Hi, remember me? Is anyone listening? Well, all my shows were back in the 80s when I was on... Hi, remember me? Is anyone listening? Well, all my shows were back in the 80s when I was on the radio and the television. I'm very pleased to be talking to you from Paul's computer at Cloud Native Media. Before I head you back to Ashley to finish this presentation. Here are Paul's bank card details for the pub afterward. He's buying 49675561. Error. Command terminating.
Well, thank you. Right, okay, right. Okay, right, here goes. Crikey, right. Yeah, I could have gone smoother, by the way. So yeah, so that's a good example of a radio DJ. Anybody in the room guess who that was? I can't possibly say. So right, okay. So the next one, natural world narrator.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I had something to do with the power cut at BBC 2 on the launch night. I'm talking to you from the lift shaft in a building on Newman Street, somewhere between floors 2 and 3. I was meant to be at Cloud Native Media tonight, but the lift broke down on my way up. I would be very grateful if someone would be kind enough to call Evans Lifts to get me out of here.
So, should it be smoother? Yeah, so the bottom line is you can get some pretty natural sounding voices now. Both of them, I think, were trained on about 2 minutes of audio. So, tonight's talk with this gentleman, a round of applause for Phil as well, because I thought it was brilliant. It's definitely smoother. I was always told we were like a live demo, or actually the real rule is never do a live demo, do it just like that. So I took the decision to do a live demo. Hey, right. So in Phil Rowley's talk tonight, he had a mic on that has really upset this guy. But we've actually processed it against AI and actually asked it a load of questions. And I put all the best ones at the front, so we're going to go through them now. So the first question was, list what the talk was about, and the response was, the talk was about the implications of AI on society and business, which, out of fairness, I think that's a pretty good summary. And you can't clap me because it's AI, so... the next one was list the top 3 points made in this talk. So the first point was the importance of data privacy and ethics in AI usage. I think that's pretty accurate. Number 2, potential risks of AI malfunctions and IT meltdowns. I think that was very, very much signalled in Phil's talk. Number 3, the idea of a future where humans and AI work together in a symbiotic relationship. I think that is actually AI trying to pacify humans there, but so I actually threw one in the break, because that's me. I said, suggest a title for the talk, and you can all see it on the screen. Human Time Machine, Embrace AI in the Future, which kind of does sound passive aggressive, doesn't it? Really, accept us or die. So yeah, it's definitely mind evoking. And then this one was such a big question, and out of fairness, Phil and I sat together, and I said that, you know, out of fairness to Phil, he said, "Why have I got a mic on? What's going on?" Right. So I explained to him obviously what I was going to do, and obviously you guys are witnessing it now. I turned around to Phil and said, "Look, in terms of questions, what could we ask it?" And this is genuinely the question that we pumped into ChatGPT. So from the 5 featured AI films featured, I think I'd already had a bottle of wine by then, but so definitely featured. Ranked them by order of likelihood, and then we gave it the scale. Highly likely, unlikely, even chance, likely, and highly likely. Phil, correct? So, where's that gone? Here it is. Right. So yeah. So this was the output, and this is the bit where I was going to confer with Phil. But is Phil still with us? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It was the pen, wasn't it? So yeah. This was the output, and I must admit, like, I don't see this as a failure whatsoever. It's definitely done the highly likely ranking. It's done the likely. It's done the even chance, right? But yeah, some of it's right. But this is certainly in the experiences that I've had tinkering with AI, you kind of get stuff that's a little bit like, if you submitted this in one of your presentations, you would probably be shot down, yeah, and fired. So it kind of, yeah. Hopefully that gives everybody a sense. So the whole presentation I've done tonight, including the bit that I did in the break, is all available via this QR code. So if any of you guys, so literally it is the presentation that you've seen. I'll leave that up there for a few months so that you guys can obviously do what you will with it. But yeah, my name's been Ashley Hunt, and thank you for listening to me, and cheers. I don't know if anybody's got any questions on. Right, I've got one over here. Actually, Phil, if you're watching online, I've got a question faster than you got one, so. Yeah.
Yeah, I got it. I'll wait for you. So, by the way, I'm a contributor to Whisper CPU. Whisper AI is one component of OpenAI that's a REST open source. So you can go run that locally on anything there's on your PC, on WebAssembly. You can run it from your phone's browser without sharing any data for free. And it works amazing. And it won't just do speech, it'll say like brackets. I mean, it's very high class.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
That was it. Anyway, anybody can go try it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, just to be clear on everyone's point, obviously I was using whisperai.com, which got bought by lemonfox.ai. The only reason I'm using that is obviously openai.com provides that service as well. I just found lemonfox AI to be cheaper. And the real cheapest way to do it is obviously to invest in a GPU, which a reasonable GPU to do this would probably be somewhere 400 or 500 quid. You know, obviously you can really push the boat out and spend like thousands and thousands. But once you own this GPU, you're ready to pay for the power. And literally the electrical power that we're consuming to do it. And if anything else being used for tinkering with AI, initially coding the APIs, but as soon as it's done, that's costing you a lot of money. Definitely invest in yourself. So one more comment. One from David. Oh, I'm on. Okay.
Thank you. We alluded to the idea that the ChatGPT was using sort of like common data on the internet with when it came to the track listings and everything else. Now we're sort of post-ChatGPT world where everyone's aware that OpenAI has gone and just monetized all of this data, potentially. Do you feel that that's going to affect the quality of AI models going forward, or competitors going forward?
Hello. Yeah. So first off, very good question. I think Phil in his presentation alluded to anything you input to it as a query can then become part of other people's answers. That's certainly the way I read that. It's definitely something that we need to be conscientious of as people sharing data online. The bottom line is I came here tonight actually as a non-AI expert. I've literally just picked it up and run with it. And I'm hoping that people in the room kind of think, well, if somebody that's not an expert in AI can do some crazy stuff, maybe a little bit ADHD as well. But you know, don't do live demonstrations. I'm going to do live demonstrations. But yeah, I think we just need to be aware. In terms of the track listing point that you made, I was quite shocked to see that, so that's why it made the cut for you know, and it was one of my focus points really on the presentation tonight. That I'm potentially wrong. I think I am wrong, but the early days was like just Reddit. It's people per hour. It's not highly you know, vetted data that's going in, but it will appear that some of the things that Phil said is probably true already. Where you know, where you know, like I said, like the tracks that I looked at were the tracks that were played. You know, maybe I didn't look at exactly the second of the play time, but for me, you know, Shanice, I Love Your Smile, 1991. You know, that was definitely played first, and it was definitely, you know, an R&B track of that era. So, is he allowed? Send him down in the lift.
So, as a human that is an AI and not musical, don't know music, what I thought was quite interesting was one of the easiest things I need to do is just tell you how long it's taking. See what I mean? Because I was quite shocked that the AI couldn't tell you how long the track was.
But that was only on the obscure station. That's the reason for doing two stations.
I know how to measure the length of a piece of speech, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, it's interesting that it's a very long way from somewhere.
Yeah.
No. I totally understand that.
That was the whole reason. I actually appreciate where you're going with this, because one of the biggest emphases is that I don't think I made strongly enough at the start. The first screen was actually, it's the only screenshot I have, was an Excel document, right? If we took that away from our lives now, I'd be like, oh my god, how am I going to submit my expenses to my accountant or you know, or to my boss or what have you? If that was taken away after, let's say, at least 3 decades in the mainstream, and in most of our lives in the room, at least 25, that would be really painful. And I'm kind of thinking, Excel isn't here to take over the world. Excel is a tool in the toolbox, and I think AI, you know, from a lot of the things that I've seen, and yet again didn't put it in the speech. I've watched a lot of pioneers of AI, and I've seen some really funny scenarios where you've got AI saying that you know, July 2020 came before July 2015, and then when you question it, it goes, why would you question me? And so you can kind of get into bullshit mode, you know. I think if we look at it as not stealing our jobs, it's just you know, the modern equivalent of Excel, but just in a different shape and form. I think that's the way I look at it. I think anybody that is worried should maybe try and look at it that way and reduce anxiety, really.
Thank you so much. It is late, so we're going to have to call time there, but thank you so much. That was fascinating. That was absolutely, look, I'm still processing everything that you talked about, so that's awesome. We are going to the 1 ton. It is there. Before we go, you can help us because it is late. It's past 9 o'clock, and you can help us in 2 ways. First of all, any rubbish, if we could put it in the black bags, that would be amazing. There might be 3 ways. Chairs, if you've got a swivel chair, if you could put it round the big table. If you've got a purple stool, if it can go over there. If you've got one of the other chairs, they need to go in the side room. And there is some beer left. Please finish the beer, because I don't like carrying it home. Much as I like it when I get home, I don't like carrying it home. Anyway, thank you very much. See you next time. And thank you to Phil as well. Woo!